Merry Christmas to everyone who celebrates Christmas. And if you don't, well, throw that tree in the trash. That's a joke. You should recycle it. Anywho, today's shorter-ish video will be about UnOrdinary, unsurprisingly. I've been on the YouTube game for around 3 Christmases, and they've always been about UnOrdinary, and I honestly wouldn't have it any other way. UnOrdinary has been such an important part of my channel. For 2.5 years, around 11k subs, and just over 130 videos. My UnOrdinary content has always been some of the most popular and influential stuff on my channel. This series is definitely the reason I became a webtoon ambassador. Definitely the reason I've met such cool people on YouTube, on Instagram, heck, even on TikTok, even if I don't use that last one too much. The point I'm trying to make is thank you. Thank you for everything. Everything you've done, the comments you left, the times you've simply clicked on my videos. It may not seem like it's a lot, but it does mean so much to me. So, without further ado, UnOrdinary, a name that strikes fear into the hearts of me, just my hearts. For those unaware, since I'm not sure how much you know, UnOrdinary's main premise might sound a little familiar, as we follow John, someone who lives in a world where just about everyone has superpowered abilities known as, well, abilities. Just about everyone but John. Known as a crippled, he's crippled. He's known as a crippled. The beginning of the story is about John, a powerless in the world of power, trying his best to get through high school without dying. This might invoke other types of series, My Hero and Sky High for most people. Monday was an Epithet Erased reference because I like that show. A powerless in a high school full of people with powers might not be unordinary. Get it? The story at first might not appear to be the most original. However, while most of these stories involve the main character wanting to become a hero, going to a school and becoming a hero, and getting powers or having powers through unique and special ways, that's really where most things start to deviate with UnOrdinary. John doesn't go to a school for heroes. In fact, no one does. The concept of heroes has been socially frowned upon. These people don't go to a school to learn about their powers or to become heroes. These people are just going to school to go to school, to get good grades, to get into a university. You see, the biggest thing UnOrdinary has going for it is deviation. I wouldn't call it a plot twist since it's not really that, or even subverting expectations, because I think Overly Sarcastic Productions did a really good job of explaining the difference in this video, and I'm not sure either apply here. Deviation, though, is an entirely different beast. UnOrdinary's main premise might be familiar and similar to other stories, people with powers going to a school for powers, and we follow someone who doesn't yet. There's value in these stories, sure. I mean, there has to be since they're so popular. But that only feeds into this story's advantage. That advantage being it was a story created to be real. Now, some of you might protest. None of these stories are real. They all have powers and stuff. And yeah, you're right. These stories about superheroes and villains aren't accurate to real life. What a shock. No, what I really mean is that I feel like these other series were created to tell a story, a cool story about heroes and villains. However, UnOrdinary doesn't tell this story. It tells a story about people. John gets bullied a lot in this series. And while other series might touch on it, I feel like in this world it makes so much sense. People value power and strength over anything else. This leads to people showing off their power and strength at all times, whether the target is willing to or not. I honestly think UnOrdinary Society makes way more sense than any other series like this. When people value strength and power over anything else, of course people want to show it off as much as they can. And what's more important is that this series shows off the consequences of how much society relies on the importance of strength and power. Especially with our 3 main characters, starting with... Now, I've talked about all characters in depth, and I did talk about Arlo pretty recently, back in September, apparently. Okay, maybe it wasn't that recent. But Arlo is a pretty interesting character. He starts the series as almost the antagonist to John's protagonist status. What I mean is he's the main force against John's wishes. But what I don't mean is that Arlo is the villain and John is the hero, because we'll get to that. Arlo starts off pretty mean, eventually getting the webtoon equivalent of cancelled by its readers by getting a clever community name. Arlo cares about one thing, that being the hierarchy. I mentioned before that the world of UnOrdinary cares about strength and power over anything else. And the hierarchy is just the culmination of that, as the strongest get to be in charge. Not only in charge, but the king, the queen, and the jack of the school. Arlo is the king of Wellston, the high school the series takes place in. In my opinion, there couldn't be a better antagonist. John is a crippled, we'll put that in quotes, a powerless at the bottom of the food chain. Meanwhile, Arlo is the king of Wellston, powerful and at the top. Arlo cares so much about the hierarchy, and John has ejected himself from it. And a lot of readers are confused by why Arlo cares so much. Why can't Mr. Rules over here lighten up a little? But that brings us to an important aspect I mentioned before, that being the consequences of the importance of strength and power. Arlo has put so much stake into these things because that's how he was raised. That's what his parents taught him. That's what his aunt enforced in him. As we get to see this when Arlo does try to take it easy, but his aunt doesn't super want him to. How very unlike you, Arlo. Growing up, you've always aimed to be at the top. Tell me, what could be more important than that? Arlo, perhaps you should reassess your priorities. Focus on yourself and building your resume. Don't allow yourself to be distracted by all this noise around you. And that quote leads really well into our next character. Serafina is the strongest member of Wellston. While Arlo is the king and the one in charge, Serafina is the strongest member of the school, period. And with the ability to control the flow of time, how is that fair? What? Her strength is unmatched in the school. However, by the start of the series, she's ejected herself from the hierarchy. She no longer wishes to be part of it. And the reason is because of John. Before the cool and confident Serafina we know now, she was once a gifted child. And I'm not saying that as a positive thing. Serafina was amazing. She got the best grade. She was the strongest, unbeatable, unmatched. But the weight of expectations weighed on her heavily. They chained her down. The role of expectations play a powerful role in Serafina's life. She was trapped by them. That was until John. Someone who helped her realize that she doesn't need to meet others' expectations of her. She doesn't need to live the life that others have chosen for her. She can live for herself. Choose the life she wants to live. The one that would make her the happiest. Which brings us to John. John is a difficult character to talk about. I've talked about Arlo and Serafina twice on my channel. Meanwhile, John has 8 videos dedicated to him, and there are way more that have him in the video, but just not the main focus. But John is such a difficult character, and honestly, that's why he's such an amazing character. John is so complex that you can make 4 videos dedicated to his character and his arc. Another one going in depth about his mental health issues. 2 more dedicated to his ability and how it would fare against other webtoon characters. Boy, I really need to remake that one. And another talking about the steps he took and if they made sense. John is such an amazing character because he's what the series really represents. Sure, deviation and consequences play a major role in John and basically everyone's life, but most importantly, it's a story about people. people don't just play one role in society. People aren't confined to be one type of person. People aren't doomed to be the villain or the hero for their entire life. People are allowed, heck, encouraged to change, to grow, to become better. Arlo was basically the antagonist and kind of a villain for most of the first season. However, he changed. He realized that the hierarchy was hurting society more than it was helping. Seraphina's change was always on display, but even more so after she lost her ability, losing her strength, losing her power, both hierarchy-wise and ability-wise. And John has had the most change. He's developed the most. From a crippled kid to a tyrannical ruler, falling from grace, being broken and rejected by just about everyone he liked and cherished, turning over a new leaf to being yet again broken and rejected by just about everyone, losing trust in the one person he thought he could rely on, becoming another tyrannical king, to finally realizing that while the hierarchy might hurt people, he was hurting even more people by trying to break it through force. The series is about change. The series is about so much. Consequences, deviation, the role of expectations that play in society, how tradition can affect our future generation for the good and the bad, how not every rule needs to be applied to every person, how people are allowed to and encouraged to be different than other people, but most importantly, the one thing I can point to this series and say that yes, it's the main reason for it, the series is about change. And honestly, I think that's pretty beautiful. But that's just my opinion. What about yours? What are your thoughts on this series? Leave them in the comments below. But like always, thank you for watching. No video next week. I'm gonna be planning something special. But I hope you still take care and have a happy holidays.